What's up, everybody? Got another Grixis Shadow voiceover league for you. List pretty much the same. The only change I made was I swapped out the one main deck Spell Pierce for the Lightning Bolt. But I've been like really happy with this list, so I don't want to go through some big update change process. But I thought this league was really cool that happened off stream because it really showcases the power of Croxa. So if you're interested in seeing that, seeing some games that Croxa is able to get us there where Underworld Breach probably doesn't, then this is a good video for you. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and hopefully you get to see some cool gameplay. So let's get rolling with the first match. Take a second to move off screen and scroll. And a little early, there we go. All right, round number one. We're on the play. Always love being on the play. Good opening hand. Thoughtseize, Shadow. Got some iterations. Bobble to help draw a little bit. We Thoughtseize and see Harmonic Prodigy. So some sort of like a Shamans deck. Find another fetch land. So we do get Shadow down. We have Bolt ourselves to protect our Shadow. Or Bolt if they find something we need to kill. They top deck another Prodigy. I learned a very valuable lesson here that, first of all, Harmonic Prodigy has Prowess that I had no idea. Two, your opponent can absolutely top deck both the second Prodigy and the Lightning Bolt in back-to-back draws. So we were really insulated against one of those. We were not insulated against both of them. But either way, they find another Hierarch, get a Visionary. They're going to start clocking us with this Visionary a little bit. So we're probably going to have to like spend our next turn terminating that. But we've got a couple removal spells. So we're protected from like Rage Forger triggers, more Harmonic Prodigies, stuff like that. As long as our opponent doesn't find like Collected Companies. Usually this is a Collected Company deck, so there's always the chance that my opponent does find one, and if they do, I'm like not in a very good shape to deal with it. So you go for Bolt on the Ledger Shredder. Fine. We do get to sit on our Terminate, which we'll probably have to like fire off pretty soon. Here, I just want like more cards that do stuff. I was really shocked that my opponent blocked this Ragavan here. Like, I don't think that Ragavan trigger matters all that much, but what do I know? And they Ewit, get back Lightning Bolt. So now I know I don't want to take a hit for 2 at any point here, because if I do, there's a good chance my opponent just kills me with the Bolt. So instead, we'll get our Croxa down. Get one of these cards out of hand. Like, if they have double Bolt, I can't beat that anyway. So there's not really much of a reason to, like, try to play around it. But it looks like they didn't have anything. Maybe they drew, like, something that had to chump block, whatever. Maybe they were scared of Croxa. Sideboarding against this Shaman's deck. I took out a bunch of, like, Thoughtseizes. Took out some Ragavans. Brought in Terminates, Engineered Explosives, Dress Downs. Thoughtseize is one I'm on kind of on the fence about. Like, I think Thoughtseize is fine, but at the same time, if my opponent gets like a Prodigy and an Eternal Witness, then Thoughtseize just doesn't matter. And with the number of like Collected Companies and stuff like that, or like Collected Company into Ewit, Get Back Company, then I feel like they're going to really outvalue Thoughtseize in the late game. So I don't want to hinge on that too much. So we get turn 2 Croxa. They ditch a Prismatic ending, which was kind of interesting. It's like, all right, they have white mana in their deck, but then they fetched out a Stomping Ground instead of like a Temple Garden or a Sacred Foundry. So I was a little confused. And they've got Beseiju, so now I know I can't counter a Collected Company if they do have one. I also did not realize that beside you had to pay the life to add the mana for anything. I thought it was like just pay 2 life if you're casting an instant or sorcery and make it uncounterable. But even if you're casting a creature, you have to pay the life. It just doesn't get uncounterable. So that was kind of interesting. Things I learned today. Here, I just want to hold up Drown in the Lock to stop like a Rage Forger or another Ewit or something. I didn't think playing out the Shadow and tapping off of all of my interaction was smart. Like, I knew I couldn't stop a company, but I can kill something that enters off a company. So, kind of have to take your wins and losses where you can get them. But either way, they do find a company. They hit Harmonic Prodigy and a Visionary, so they get to draw a couple cards. But a little unfortunate. We're just gonna have to get back Croxa and see what happens. All right. So somebody in one of my other YouTube videos talked about or brought up a comment about how I steal a lot of games, and I want to stop here after this company because I want to talk about that for a second. So let's let this resolve. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I wanted to talk about stealing games. And this is something that I bring up in stream a good bit, but I usually use a very specific wording. Uh, it's usually not stealing games, it's usually giving yourself a chance to win, playing to win, not playing to not lose. So, a lot of times in Magic, you'll have a situation come up where you've got a line that lets you survive a little bit better, maybe with a little bit more life, or you have a line that allows you to like mitigate the damage a little bit more, or you have a line that puts you in a more aggressive, more proactive position to potentially win that game instead of just like tread water for a little bit. Because a lot of times treading water doesn't matter in Magic. Either you're winning the game or you're losing the game. And unless you're like 10 minutes up on clock on Magic Online, there's often not a lot of middle ground. So this turn coming up, we're kind of going to mention like winning versus not losing. So I'm going to go to my opponent's turn. Uh, I'm dead on board if they just like right click, attack all, or I'm not dead currently. If they right click, attack all with what's currently showing on board, then I go to 1. Like I block Ewit, I take 5, I go to 1. I've got a Croxa and a Shadow. But if I tap this Fire Outlet, I die. So we're gonna pass the turn. Our opponent's gonna put something on the stack. We could like try to interact here, like Harmonic Prodigy into whatever they hit off that Ewit. So they're gonna find a whole bunch of cards, and I could like counter one of those because the Ewit's gonna get a ton of value and try to like hope my opponent doesn't make an attack or whatnot. But sometimes you just steal games by setting yourself up to potentially win, which is, hey, I could counter this and hope my opponent doesn't attack, or I could let this resolve. And if my opponent does attack, then maybe I get to like kill something else that's attacking, uh, untap, double removal spell, and maybe steal this game that I didn't have any business stealing because my opponent made like a slightly ill-advised attack, but I recognized it and didn't go along with the optimal play. So my opponent like made this attack that I didn't necessarily agree with. I didn't think they needed to make this attack here. Like, I'm so low on life. Battle Rage isn't a very common card right now. There's not a lot that I can do to like deal with the board of 6 creatures, but they give me a chance. They attack. I'm able to kill off something. EE for 3 to take out the Ewit, drown and lock the Harmonic Prodigy, and I would have a lethal attack back. Uh, so a lot of it, like I said, is recognizing when you have an opportunity and trying your best to not miss out on it. All right, so this is one of the most hilarious matches I've played in a minute. Opponent leads basic swamp, go. I got Ragavan, they've got Fatal Push, second basic swamp. So it's probably a mono black control kind of deck. Which we see March of Wretched Sorrow, I think that's the name. Think that's the name of it. So we're pretty confident in saying it's a mono black control deck. And then Relic right before the Kroxa is really awkward for us. Iteration finds more Kroxas. So opponent goes ahead and pops that Relic, which is fine. Knight's Whisper. So Kroxa looking a little sketchy here. We're also really down on red sources with all these red cards in hand. So Karn the Great Creator. So there's not really much we can do to come back from this, right? Like Karn just got a Cityscape Leveler, assuming they have a Cabal Coffers or something. They relicked away our Kroxa or our graveyard for Kroxa. We do get rid of the Karn, so we just have to kind of plug away a little bit as we can. Shredder into Kroxa, finds us another card, gets Kroxa to the bin, gets something out of their yard. Got a Blood Chief's Thirst and Suspended Profane Tutor. Well, we don't have any way of stopping that, so we can Shredder here. We can escape Kroxa. We just have to, like I said, keep chipping a little bit as you can. There's very few times where you're going to be able to like recoup the entire lost percentage points in one turn, but hey, like a little bit here, a little bit there. Opponent's got another Karn. They go get Bridge with this one. Pretty solid. We have 0 main deck ways of destroying a bridge. And as you can see, we don't currently have a Drown in the lock, so we'll keep chipping away, see what happens. Profane Tutor comes off suspend. Damnation, so that's probably what they got off of the tutor. Get some stuff in the yard. They're at a very healthy 16 life, so the odds of being able to kill them with Kroxa triggers is pretty low. Like, you think about that as a potential out to Ensnaring Bridge. Oh, if I just get back Kroxa over and over again, like, the triggers will eventually kill them. But when your opponent's got, like, 14 life in this case, then that likelihood starts dwindling down. But Shredder plus Bolt finds us an Iteration. Iteration finds us another Kroxa, Bobble. We could cast a Kroxa there, but I was thinking if I draw a Drown in the Lock, that would be fantastic. If I play a Kroxa here and they have like another Relic, that would be horrendous. So I'm just going to save this Kroxa in hand. Like, the trigger doesn't matter. My opponent's got 4 or 5 cards in hand. But now I get to like dash a Ragavan, escape a Kroxa, and again, just kind of chipping away, chipping away. Hit them for 5. They got Bridge. It's like now we're getting to realistic Kroxa territory. Like, all right, maybe now I can escape Kroxa a couple times for a kill. Iteration's fine, so we can just cast like a Ragavan or something, get the free Ledger Shredder trigger. Shadow doesn't really matter. want cards in the graveyard, so now we've got another drown, so we can stop some like big payoff. They've got 17 cards in their yard. They unearth a cityscape leveler, which cannot attack because of an ensnaring bridge. So that's pretty okay with us. We've got enough cards in our yard to escape a Croxa again. Thoughtseize is fine because, like, now we've got a situation where if our opponent holds on to a card, we can Thoughtseize that card and then escape a Croxa. So maybe we get them empty handed with the Thoughtseize, and then we know Croxa trigger gets to deal 3. So it's a little bit of like a setup. Bloodstained Mire, anything that puts cards in the graveyard's good, and our opponent's empty handed. We don't have enough cards in the graveyard to escape Croxa yet, but hey, we're chipping away. Definitely don't want that resolving. If my game plan is escape Croxa, the last thing I want is for my opponent to have a Relic of Progenitus. Top deck iteration finds a lightning bolt, so now bolt upstairs. I'm pretty sure it's the third lightning bolt this game. Croxa trigger, they've got no cards in hand. Usually Croxa trigger first just in case there's like something I missed. I can hold on to the bolt instead of just firing everything off. Game 2 against Mono Black. I don't have like a very good sideboard plan in this list, but it's mostly just board out terminates, board out heats, trim on like Croxas and Drowns, cause of Relic of Progenitus, boarding in Alpine Moon. I think I boarded in Kaito, Spell Pierces, Bluster Storms. We get to Thoughtseize and see that like they don't have a very good hand. They've got this Relic and then a Damnation, but no second Black Source. They've got an Archon, or I guess they got Urborg, so Black Source doesn't matter. Whatever. Could have played out the Ledger Shredder there, but I don't want to play out the Ledger Shredder into a Damnation when I can't stop the Damnation. So instead, we'll be a little more passive. Just crack in with Ragavan. Blow up our Watery Grave, sure. And I'm just waiting for my opponent to crack their relic, and then I'll crack the one we took off them, so that we don't like have to exile the graveyard twice. I've got Drown in the Lock, so I don't want to actively relic them. But now that we've found the Thoughtseize, we can take the Damnation. So we see they've got an Archon and another Urborg. Opponent cracks the Relic, so we crack Relic, and now we're just like back on kind of even footing. They find a Fatal Push for our Ragavan, and then Blood Chief's Thirst, but we have the answer for the Blood Chief's Thirst, so at least we get to keep our clock going. Keep the Ledger Shredder going. We know their last 2 cards are still Urborg and Archon. So the goal here is just to find a way to squeak across the last few damage, and kind of hoping if we can get a couple attacks in, should be all we need. It's like we've got lethal this next turn if they find nothing, and they do, so on to match number 3. Really nice to start off a League 2-0-4-0. Round 3 on the play again. Ragavan turn 1, Drown in the Lock turn 2. For every time people say the basic island and Croxa don't mix, I'm going to say the basic swamp and expressive iteration don't mix. So pick your poison. Drown Lock the Soul Scar. It looks like a red-white or like a Jeskai Prowess or something. So our goal is just to try to keep the board clear as much as we can. Dang. Upkeep an Unholy Heat. If they add a mutagenic growth, that's kind of okay. Ragavan hits a Serum Visions. Pretty good with your Dragon's Rage Channeler that you also stole off your opponent's library. That finds Lightning Bolt, so we get to kill the clever Lumimancer. And again, like I said, our goal these first few turns is just clear the board as aggressively as we possibly can. Like the way we die is leaving them with creatures on the battlefield. So let's get down Ledger Shredder, just get our free Kroxa trigger. Adding creature to the yard there gets Dragon's Rage Channeler online. And hopefully we can just put in enough pressure while having the Ledger Shredder as backup that our opponent can't find anything. And happen to roll a Terminate off the top. So, yep. Sideboarding against Prowess. I don't think I pull up the sideboard screen much, but I'm basically just bringing in like dress downs and like dress down and spell pierce, and then the extra terminates, and that's about it. Boarding out like some Ragavans because cards like Lava Dart, Lightning Bolt, um, and then trimming on some number of like Ledger Shredder or Expressive Iteration. Just try to speed things up a little bit. Again, focus on keeping dudes off the board. Opponent does not find a threat on turn 3, which is fantastic. So now we can play out Double Shadow, hold up Bolt ourselves to protect a Shadow, which we get to do right away. Opponent's got a second Lightning Bolt. Okay, a little annoying, but we do have a Shadow down. Expressive Iteration's fine. They have fetched down to 13 to play the Swift Spear. So now if they don't block, they die. Or if we just top deck a removal spell, they die. So either way, works out. So we're going to match number 4 here. Again, on the play. Again, decent opening hand. Turn 1 Ragavan. We've got interaction for their board. Kroxa is kind of our late game thing. Basic Island. Alright, see Goblin Guide. So it's burn. Never blocking with this Ragavan. And 2 really good draws off the top. Decided to play the basic island so I can hold up Unholy Heat and Drown in the Lock without having to shock myself. And they've got Searing Blaze for my Ragavan, which kind of sucks. Like, I wish they'd had a fetch land there so I could have drowned that, but at the end of the day, like, we just get to keep working up our progression. We get Kroxa plus hold up drown this turn. And then next turn we have like Bolt and Drown if we're not too low of life. All right, so opponent's down to 1 card to resolve this Boros Charm. I could counter the Boros Charm and take the 2, and it's less damage, but I would rather get like the threat off the board and just go to my turn. Like, I know I'm not escaping Kroxa on my turn. If I was, then I probably would counter the Boros Charm, untap, escape the Kroxa, because it can just stand in front of the Swift Spear. But since I'm not escaping the Kroxa, I kind of want to just kill the Swift Spear there. It's way better, especially if I draw like a Death Shadow right that second. But I don't. So instead, we just get to let me talk about that last turn. I think I skipped like kind of through it. So this turn, I Mishra's Bauble Vilm, and I see a Skewer the Critics on top of their library. So I know that if they hardcast the Skewer, they pay 3, I drown. Either their last card is a land or a spell they can't cast, in which case I get to untap, shock in, escape Kroxa, ditch the last card. or their other card is something that does me damage, in which case I can drown counter that. The skewer gets stuck in hand because they can't have a spell that does damage. I counter that and the land and a skewer with only 2 cards in hand. So if I counter the thing that does damage, then the skewer's stuck in hand. I get to untap, shock and Croxa, escape it, do that. So like either way, I take no damage this turn. I untap, I get Croaks on the board with 5 life. And that's obviously a pretty substantial number when you're talking about a 2-turn clock. So the only thing that can kill you is back-to-back burn spells off the top. So we counter the lava spike that they had, escape Croxa, ditch the skewer the critics, and now they're on a 2-turn clock. We're not dead to a creature. It has to be back-to-back burn spells. They top deck Scalding Tarn, so we know we're in the clear. Expressive Iteration, just to look for another Drown in the Lock. We see a Mishra's Bobble, so I'm going to bobble myself, because if there is a Drown in the Lock on top, I'd rather just hold on to that. There's not, so I play out the Ledger Shredder, pass, draw my land, and we go to game 2. Gotta breathe during these games. All right, sideboard against burn, board out thought seizes, a trim on an iteration, and a ledger shredder. Bring in a couple dress downs, spell pierces, fluster storms. You can keep in the extra ledger shredder if you're more concerned about sanctifier on Vec, but because I'm bringing in the dress downs, I'm kind of okay dropping a shredder. Dress down stops prowess triggers off swift spear as well as the haste. Stops the trigger off Eidolon. Stops pro blue or pro black, pro red off Sanctifier. So a lot of reasonable text. Opponent goes for the double burn spell. We get down Ledger Shredder. They make this attack, which means they for sure have a Searing Blaze. But we get the Goblin Guide off the board, and now we get to untap, play out our Shadow, hold up Drown in the Lock. I'm okay going down to 2 life here because I have the Drown in the Locks up. So if my opponent does in their 1 blind draw step, like they're drawing up to 1 card here, if they or up to 2 cards, if they did find a burn spell or something, we'd have Drown. If they don't, then we get to untap the next turn. Oh, look, basic island looking fantastic because we get to have double Drown in the Lockup for all the haters. So Drown in the Lockup, Path, exile my Shadow, and now I just have to hope they don't have 2 1-mana burn spells. But a Goblin Guide, I gotta counter it. And we win. We win because basic island. Remember that. We've won a match here, the mono black one, because Croxa. We beat Burn because Basic Island. All right, and round number 5. If your opponent reveals Obosh, you might as well just go ahead and scoop up the match because it really does not matter what they're doing. It's bad for you. It could either be like the Hayashi Obosh builds with a whole bunch of blast zones and blood moons and spyros, and that's awful for you. Or it can be the spike build with solitudes and furies and blood suns and ephemerates, and that's horrific for you. So pick your poison. They all suck. Suck to play against. But we're just gonna think for half a second, maybe there's a chance we can steal this game. Oh, Ledger Shredder gets portable hold, and then a Spyro. Well, if they're ditching a Fury, that's terrifying for me. Let's Ledger Shredder and Thoughtseize. How bad could it possibly be? Triple Solitude Season Pyromancer. That bad. Got it. Well, they missed their 5th land drop and they add Obosh, so that's pretty positive, right? Like we can maybe start fighting through these solitudes with the Thoughtseize. Ready for it? Ah. Oh, you have drawn the fourth solitude. All four solitudes in an Obosh. Huh. Well then, let's let's leave him with the solitudes, cause we're gluttons for punishment. Opponent cracks in. They go ahead and evoke a solitude, exiling a solitude. So that's two solitudes down. Progress. Get out of shadow. So opponent passes through, goes back to our turn. We're gonna attack with our shadow. We got bolt ourselves. All right, stomp. Sure, bolt ourselves again. Really heads up of them to let that stomp resolve because they end up going for the solitude here, exile the shadow. But because they let the stomp resolve, then the Bone Crusher gets to go on an adventure. If they had solituded before it resolved, then the Bone Crusher or the stomp would have fizzled and they would have lost the Bone Crusher. But hey, we have now fought through Obosh and all four copies of Solitude. So maybe if we're able to find like an expressive iteration for a shadow or something, maybe there's a chance of getting back in this. But we do not. And now that they've found the fifth land, they've got Spyro tokens, and that swarms whatever we can do. Sideboarding against this deck is literally does not matter. Pray, whatever god you believe in, like offer up a small sacrifice, something. But I'm just bringing in like dress downs to try to stop ETB effects. Maybe Flusterstorm to help with Ephemerate a little bit. But all you can really do is hope that you can maybe cheese out a win. Get a quick shadow, get dress down. Maybe in this case, we get a Croxa going. Just something. Hold up Spell Pierce here in case of Blood Sun. But really, if your opponent doesn't want to give you a traction point, you're probably not going to get a traction point. And all I mean is like something going in your favor. I held up Steam Vents there because I was like, I've got Spell Pierce. I don't want to tap off blue. I'm more likely to find a red spell that I want to cast, a Ragavan, or removal spell. Find a Thoughtseize. So I would have been in a little better spot if I could have put like Croaks at a hand and exiled the Thoughtseize and cast the Thoughtseize. But oh well. Maybe I should have recognized like I didn't want to play a red card right here. Bolt into Thraben Inspector with Ephemerate would have been bad. Ragavan would have been bad with Portable Hole. So I probably should have just held up the Watery Grave and tried to nab a Thoughtseize. So opponent's just finding like mono Ephemerate, Solitude, Portable Hole stuff. Bone Crusher is pretty good. Oh. So let's escape Croxa. So if our opponent does go for like Solitude, Ephemerate, maybe we can Spell Pierce the Ephemerate. We just need to get cards out of hand. All of their cards are horrendous for us to go up against. Go for the Bolt. Like I was kind of assuming they would Ephemerate that, but I guess they decided not to. So okay, we get Drown in the Loch, Dress Down. If we can find like a shadow, that would be really, really good. Ragavan's kind of whatever. We have to Drown in the Loch this Solitude because, it kills us. It looks like opponent just started finding all the big stuff, so not a lot we can do here. I had a decision to make here. I had the choice between like play out Gigantha, hold up, dress down, play out Ragavan, hold up, dress down, play out Gigantha and Ragavan, hold up, spell pierce. And my thought was like, if I play out just Gigantha and my opponent's got a Solitude or another Fury and I dress down, like that's not horrendous for me. If I play out Gigantha and they, let's say, play a Solitude and I get to dress down it, like that's reasonable. If I play out Gigantha and they attack, then I probably have to dress down before blocks because like I need to get something off the board. I need something to go kind of right for me. And so I need to like get the Fury dealt with. I think the correct line here would have been play Gigantha, play dress down on my own instep so that I'm protected from Ephemerate, Solitude, Fury, whatnot. But my fear was kind of like if I do that, then they just don't do anything. And that's not necessarily good for me. I kind of feel like that's the play to not die line instead of the play to win. If I play Gigantha and Ragavan, then I run the issue of if they attack him with Fury and I block with like Gigantha, they let the first strike go through and then ephemerate the Fury, kill the Gigantha, kill the Ragavan. And that's obviously really bad for me. I don't know about a Solitude in their hand. I just know the Ephemerate. So I kind of just decide every line I have is pretty bad. So I'll make them see the obscure play, which is the attack with Fury, first strike damage, then ephemerate the Fury and wipe the board. But instead, opponent just has a second copy of Fury, and now I have to block this Fury. First strike kills my Gigantha, Ledger Shredder. I dress down on my instep to shut off all like the double strike and ephemerate shenanigans, hoping that I just hit a removal spell, but we hit a shadow, so we die. So yeah, like we started off that league 4-0-8-0, which was fantastic. Kroxa won us games. Basic Island won us games. Everything looked like it was coming along pretty smoothly, and then just run into an absolute buzzsaw of a matchup round 5. So just remember that regardless of how well you're doing, the Magic Online universe owes you no favors, and it will remind you of that every step of the way. But I hope this league like showcased Kroxa being really good. One is that mono black matchup for sure, and then had a ton of value, ditched multiple cards every time we saw Kroxa, which was insane. We won through our mono black opponent having like multiple Relic of Progenitus, thanks to Kroxa. So that was huge. And yeah, the third lightning bolt was nice. So that was a plus. People have asked about Fatal Push. For me, I don't like having too many reactive cards. Like I've got Unholy Heat, Terminate. Those are already really reactive. Drowning Lock's really reactive. And adding Fatal Push to the mix as well is just like kind of too many for my taste to just to answer dudes. And Lightning Bolt gives you that flexibility of like, hey, I'm going to send this upstairs when I need to grow a shadow and protect it, which both came up this league. So remember that the next time you think about Fatal Push over Bolt, just the flexibility of Bolt's super, super nice. And you don't have to be playing Underworld Breach to play Bolt. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch y'all back live probably tomorrow on Friday. We'll have the link to the stream down below. Otherwise, have an awesome rest of your week. Stay safe. Enjoy some good food and company. Catch y'all back later.